All right, welcome to the Get Hoptimized Podcast. I am Chris, your host, and today we are going to be talking about distribution and retail and how to maybe start thinking creatively with your distribution strategies. And here to talk to us about this is an expert with over 25 years in the consumer packaged goods space and food service and retail, the founder of Food Service Octopus, Mike Levinson. Mike, thank you for being here, man. What's up?
Pleasure to be here and looking forward to this. Um, Happy to dive in and share my experience, my opinions, and really kind of tailor my conversation to your audience. Side note, I live in Denver. My neighbor across the way is a craft beer maker, brewer, if you will, out of his basement and garage. Great tasting. I'm just really not an alcohol guy. I like a good beer every once in a while. So I'm looking forward to listening for to future podcasts, learning, connecting with some of your viewing and audience members. It's a fantastic space that your audience is in. And I'll share my experience and perspective on how to navigate the waters from going from making beer in your basement or even in your restaurant to possibly expanding distribution, which is a word a lot of people don't really understand, and we can dive in. So ask questions. If not, I have diarrhea of the mouth and I'll just go.
Well, that's that's why I want to have you on, not because of the diarrhea, but because of, I want to. I'm always down to like think outside the box, right, and learn from what other industries are doing, what other, where the success is being had, and like apply that stuff to what we're doing here in the craft beer and craft beverage industry. And when we kind of stumbled upon you and potentially having you as a guest, I was like, this could actually be really cool because of that. It's like, well, it's an outside perspective. Let's maybe see what we can learn about these things, and maybe let's start with a little bit of like background on you so we understand more about where you're coming from. So
Sure.
like we said, you got like 25 years experience in that space, but like what is that, right? Give us a little background on you and your company and what you do.
Sure, appreciate that. So, as I said, based here in Denver, half my life in Texas, the other half in California. Moved to Denver almost 5 years ago, and really enjoy living here. Registered dietitian, basic incomplete master's in nutrition. So, nutrition, food, and beverages is my love, my quote unquote passion. I think food and beverage is the biggest, best drugs that are out there. And I'm not saying I'm not an advocate of drugs, but I'm saying, you're in a bad mood, you eat something, you have a good beer, whatever, you feel good, et cetera, et cetera. My background is in nutrition. I decided years ago that in order to make money, real money, you can't be a typical dietitian. So I've been in quote unquote sales for 25, well, my whole life. But for this conversation, food and beverage, 25 years, meaning I've worked for manufacturers. I've worked for distributors, helped start companies, started different companies, all in the what I call the CPG world. And for the folks that don't know what that term is, consumer packaged goods. So I'll really tailor anything I say to the beer industry because that's who your audience is. So any beer that's out there in a can is a CPG product, whether it sits at retail at your local grocery store, or it sits at a convenience store, or a college and university campus, or a business and tech campus, anywhere that it sits in a refrigerated section. That's my love and passion. I will say this. I'm going to pause for any questions. If not, I'll keep going.
No, keep going. I
Okay.
have questions.
Okay.
I'll direct here in a second, but keep giving us the download.
So there are 77,000 retail distribution points out there. What that means is, really simplified version is grocery stores, big box, the Costco's, the Sam's and BJ's are a big box. The Whole Foods and Sprouts and Wegmans and H-E-B and Publix and Kroger and Albertsons and yada yada. Any retailer that's got food and beverage, and I'm gonna assume they all have beer, and a lot of them have hard alcohol and wine and things like that. Retail, there's about 40 to 50,000 retail items in your local grocery store. That's a lot of product. I call that the ocean. So for your viewers and listeners, whenever I say the ocean, I'm talking retail.
Okay.
I don't play a lot in the ocean on purpose, and I can dive in a minute of why. I really like to play in alternative channels, meaning there's 150,000 convenience stores out there. The 7-Eleven and Circle K and Wawa and Casey's, and there's a bunch of smaller ones. Every city, town has multiple convenient slash gas stations. I like to play in that space. I play in the college and university. There's around 5,000 colleges, universities. Some have beer, some don't. I don't know all the rules and regulations. Obviously they got to be 21 to drink. They probably do have it, but I don't know all of the universities that do and don't. Then
Mhm.
there's micro markets out there, which really focus on the office and pantry, about 20,000 of them. There's business and tech campuses. I always pick on Google and Meta and LinkedIn and Salesforce. Massive, massive employee numbers that they do have alcohol beverages, for whenever they want to grab a drink. There's the military, there's hotels, there's restaurants, hospitality. So there's just quite a lot. So
I
my
was going to
business,
ask about the hotels. I wanted to make sure that was kind of where I was grouping alternative into. And hearing you
yeah,
talk about that, I'm like, okay, you got the big guys, the big groceries, and then all these kind of little niche spots. And you're right. Like now these hotels have beer that you can buy, right downstairs, and
they
all these
do.
different formats with it. So that is kind of what we're talking about here is these kind of micro spots, micro in comparison to, Kroger or something like
The
that.
ocean. So hopefully one thing that the audience and you'll pick up on is I break it down, and the reason I got FS Octopus, FS stands for food service. So there are basically three buckets to sell a product, any CPG product, and I'm going to pick on the beer world, the craft beer world. There are three categories. There's retail, which is the ocean, which we talked about. There's online, and I don't know all the specifications for selling a product online, an alcohol beverage. I don't know. I used to buy from a company, I don't even know if they're around anymore. I can't remember the name of it, for like gifts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's D2C, right? And then there's the food service or alternative channel world. Those are the three buckets. So the octopus is there's eight tentacles or arms, meaning there's eight different channels. There's more than that, but I had to keep it simple, right? Like convenience store and micro markets is one, hotels is another, and hospitality, the military. So you can kind of, and I'll hopefully you'll share my information for anyone that wants to.
Oh yeah, totally, man. We'll add it all to the show notes and give links and I want to ask you about FS Octopus, towards the end and let people know if they're by the time we wrap up the conversation, if they want to talk to you, I'm sure people will. So we'll definitely provide those links and stuff too. Um,
Perfect.
yeah.
So
So
that's my business. I consult with retail food and beverage brands. It's really interesting because I have two comments. There's been a handful of brands that have reached out to me that are on the mixer side, non-alc products that, and I'm not an alcohol guy, not because I've got an issue, quote unquote. I just don't like, and I'm very rare. My wife and I, we've been married for 24 years. We are like, we'll go somewhere and they're like, let's get a beer. I'm like, nah, it's just not who I'm.
on your back, yeah.
I'd rather eat a cookie or cheesecake than, that's just me. Everyone's different. I think the craft beer world is fantastic. I love packaging on that. So, um,
I mean, one of the things that's again why I wanted to talk to you is that the craft beer space is filled with these small businesses that are trying to make a splash,
yeah.
and they have to battle against big companies for
Hmm.
space in these environments, and with the way the economy is right now and people's discretionary spending and things like that, the grocery stores and the ocean, as you call it, the way I see it is that they need to put product on shelves that moves. And sometimes that's cheaper, bigger brand kind of product. In the craft, it was where like, man, you had huge sections of craft beer at
Yeah.
some of these grocery spots, in the bigger spots. But now that's kind of shrunk down. And if the craft beer still exists, it's like, well, we're only going to carry one SKU from everybody, and it's the main IPA, which I know you're not a beer guy, but it's like that's
Yeah.
kind of like the main one of the craft, right? But there's so much more to craft. There's all these different beer styles. There's always new beer being made. It's like, well, I'd really love to, speaking as like a pretend, brewer. Yeah, I'm not, but like if I was, but like I really want to get more of my product out there,
Mhm.
and activate it in other spots. It feels like that is a very much an uphill battle in a losing game, but maybe not. In the alternative channel thing or alternative shelves or however you want to phrase it, that is something that's really interesting to me. And I'm curious, maybe we unpack that a little bit, like the pros and cons of doing that. Obviously, the
Yeah.
big pro of the big guys is you have lots of exposure and foot traffic and all that, but like what's like the benefits and maybe risks of activating in a hotel or in one
Yeah.
of these other smaller environments?
It's a good question. And just to clarify, the retail is the ocean. I always say alternative channel are lakes, rivers, ponds, and streams,
Okay.
right? So for your audience, they all live in a city or town somewhere, obviously. They need to play in their rivers, lakes, streams, and ponds in their backyard instead of trying to think about going after large retail or the ocean. Okay. So and we talked about this a few minutes ago. I do have some stats. I love facts and figures stats, right? And I got this information online. There's about 9,800 craft breweries out there in the US,
Oh,
right? 335 new ones open, right? $77 billion industry, 23 million barrels. Your audience probably knows that. States with most microbreweries, California, New York, Pennsylvania, Colorado, and then Washington. So I love those stats, right? So there's opportunities. People are looking. I'm going to answer your question with some uh, bullet points. So
sure.
for craft beer, let me, before I dive in, I tell everybody this. You, the, and I'll pick on craft beer. They have to have a target audience, right?
Mhm.
In other words, if I'm talking about a candy bar, right? You have to have a target. Who are you trying to go after? Obviously, for a craft beer owner, producer, it's going to be 21 and up. But flavor profile, are they trying to hit a 21 to 31-year-old, a millennial? Are they trying to hit a Gen X like me? You're young, you're probably a millennial. I don't even know.
Yeah, millennial is in my
Whatever,
bucket. Yeah.
right? So, that's number one is who's their audience, right? And they got to tailor it to the audience. So I wrote down some interesting notes. Key applications to the craft beer world is distinct positioning, really, it matters. Velocity over distribution. And what that means is it's not about getting into thousands or hundreds of locations. It's about partnering with, for instance, if you want to go after a local hotel that says, hey, we want to support you. You're in Baltimore, Maryland, right? And you go after some of the local hotels in Baltimore or wherever, you want to be able to support them. They want to be able to support you. That's a big one. Obviously, retail and distribution relationships are important. I think packaging is really important. I'm assuming all of the listeners that make their own craft beer, if they have their kegs or whatever they are, they make them and they pour them in their big mugs. But I love the industry with the packaging. It's kind of like the energy drink industry, right?
Mhm.
Packaging is really important. So I tell everybody this. Your packaging is your silent salesman. Okay. People are looking, if they don't know the flavor profile of your IPA, they're gonna look. And what comes to my mind, and I don't know if it's a local, but I think Voodoo's an IPA. I don't know.
They probably brewing, yes.
But they've got great packaging, man. The name and cool. So that's
Oh,
really
are you talking about like Voodoo Ranger? Like
Voodoo
the
Ranger.
Yeah, 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 totally. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Packaging's great, right? So, and I just remember that, not even by look, but so people look at it and they see it, they want to look at the ingredients or whatever. So that's a couple things. Um, uh, uh, a menu diversification and a better for you focus, right? So, um, the operator seeks unique limited time, or, like a LTO for their beer. Those are really more in-house. But I think the important quick ones are clear differentiation from any competitor, like what makes their IPA or their beer different than anything else out there. Strong branding. People buy on brand. They buy on the emotion. What is the connection to the customer and
Mhm.
their beer decision? If they're in their store, right, their restaurant, good customer service, cleanliness, priced right, food tastes good, whatever. That's important, right? Um, Marketing is really important as well. And I'm not going to read any more of my stupid notes here, but marketing is really important. And I say that by anyone that comes into a restaurant, the owner should be collecting their information, right? And tell their customers, put it on social media,
Mhm.
right? I'm going to pick on the coffee world. I do think that the coffee world and the craft beer world are so similar. They are neck and neck, right? I mean, there's
I'm glad to hear you say that because I've thought that myself, and I'm like, man,
yeah,
these are very similar customer that
they
probably
are
buys both. If you buy craft beer and you care about local craft beer, you
right,
probably, if you drink coffee, you probably care about local craft, locally,
right.
what do they call it, roasted beans, that kind of thing. Similar vibes here across industry for sure.
It's kind of a cult, right? Like I know people that do not like Starbucks at all. They're the biggest
Yeah.
chain out there, right? Or coffee bean and tea,
Mhm.
or Dutch Brothers. A lot of them don't like the big ones. A lot of them do, but there are tens of thousands of local coffee houses out there. I think that's the model. So one thing that stands out in my mind with a coffee example, there was a coffee one store in Massachusetts years ago, and they had on their sign of their door say, if you come in and are dancing to our song and put it on social media, we give you a free cup of coffee.
Dope.
It blew up, Chris. Okay. They blew up, right? Social media picked it up. The local news picked it up. So I would love to see a craft brewery like you come in and you do the chicken dance or do some wacky dance and you say where you are and you post it on your social media and you let us post it on social media. Maybe it'll take off, right? It'll get some
Right.
exposure. So
Well, it's about, creating those emotional and positive connections with
it
the
is.
brand. And use something like that, like, the dancing thing. Somebody sees that and it's like, oh man, that's such a fun idea. Those people are hilarious. It spreads, like, the virality of it spreads on social. And then you're like, oh, I like that brand. I like that coffee because I have a positive association with that. It made me laugh. It made me feel good, or whatever the case is. And that's just, kind of branding in
Yeah,
general,
it
right?
is.
We're
It's
making
marketing.
people.
So, I'm going to tailor this because I know we don't have huge amounts of time. I would love to talk for hours. I love talking to you and about this. So, a local brewery makes their product, right? Um, how do they get people in their door? Right? They have to have a good product, good, as we said, good tasting product, good food, good environment, music, whatever it is, good location. They feel safe, they feel comfortable. Then the brewer says, you know what? I really have a great product. I have Chris's IPA and I think it's great. And I'm going to go out and create great packaging. I also I'm a true believer in creating merchandise. Like, and this is just, I didn't do this on purpose, but I've got Elixir. I love this guy reached out to me. I'm not trying to promote his business. And I said, hey, I'll only talk to you if you send me a t-shirt. I love it. I wear a shirt. So my point being, I think a lot of these breweries or coffee houses or pizza restaurants or whatever, I think they miss the mark on merch. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? And there's been many studies done on if any customer that is ordering in your restaurant, if you just say, "Oh, you order two meals, we have a discount for a t-shirt. Do you want it?" Or a mug, or a hat, or a sticker. I believe it's anywhere from 25 to 30% say yes, right? Tell them wear out the shirt and put it on your social media. This is once again branding. It's
Yeah.
creative branding that doesn't cost money, right? People will wear your product if it's a cool looking t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
And most of these craft beer owners create some really cool shit, right? With their merchandise and their if they have cans that they're putting out, there's some cool stuff out there. So get t-shirts, get hats. But don't sell it for $50. Sell it for $20 a t-shirt. That people will support you. It's branding, branding, branding. I'm
Well,
gonna,
I'll kind of challenge you a little bit on that too. Not necessarily challenge you, but
yeah,
like, part of what we're seeing in the space when it comes to merch is that uh the boring stuff just doesn't move. Just
correct.
having the shirt with your logo on it, not enough. And the stuff that does move is like the unique design on that shirt, something you can only get for a limited time. It's got your date and a location and a fifth anniversary logo on it or something like that. Or it's I did some judging for the Craft Beer Marketing Awards a couple of years ago, and my category was merch design. And like the stuff that people are coming up with, like cool dog toys that you would never see around, or a really cool like hat that's like totally waterproof and you could take it to the beach and wear it in the ocean or whatever the case is. It's like, okay, that's a different thing that stands out and will actually get somebody to buy it, because the normal shirts and that kind of thing, people, stickers, a little bit of a different caveat, like
Okay.
people are
What
easy on
about
those,
like
but
a
yeah.
like a like a bottle opener with your logo on it or a can opener, right? Like for instance, I always say in other categories, let's pick on books, right? And I'm not a religious person. I'm not talking about religion. The only book that doesn't have a cover is the Bible,
Mhm.
right? It's a black book, right? Or whatever color. People know what's inside of it, whether you're religious or not. You know what's inside that book. But if you go to a bookstore, which a lot of people don't know what a bookstore is anymore because of the internet, but go to a bookstore, you're looking at the covers. Go
Yeah.
to a record album. I was born in the 70s and the 80s, had badass like Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, AC/DC. Those are badass looking, right? They're not boring. I'll pick
Yeah.
on a brand called Liquid Death. Everyone knows Liquid Death, right? Water,
Yeah.
another conversation. They sent me t-shirts. I wear their t-shirts. They're badass. They got a skull on the back of it, man. They're cool. I saw, did you wear Liquid Death? Was that you that was talking
Yeah,
to?
I think I was wearing
Yeah,
the
you
Liquid
had
Death
one
shirt. And
too.
no, I
The
love
last time.
Liquid Death. I was like one of the first people to like pre-order the product before
There
it
you
was even
go.
available. Like I love everything about the Liquid Death branding. I think it's
Right. And why? Because it's emotion for you. You like the look, you like the feel, you like and that's the same thing with these craft brewers, man, is they got that look and that feel and neat artwork on merchandise that they can get really, really, really inexpensive. You give away a koozie, whatever it is, right? People like free stuff. So I want to kind of go back to so there's a brew house, right? They make their own brew and they're like, you know what, we have a great product. What do we do next? Well, you got to get it canned, right? So they got to go through the canning process, which is a conversation outside of this podcast, which I can connect these folks to different can manufacturers. And then they got to say where would my product fit? I believe within a 20-mile radius of your location is where it should fit, right? Where could you see it? If it's a local grocery store, you walk in there and you say, "Hey, I own Chris's brewery, on Main Street down the road, and I want to get my product in there." They might say you got to go through a distributor, which you'll go through a distributor. But that's the first step is think about where you want it to be. If you want it to be in a hotel, you walk in the hotel, right? A lot of them, even the big hotels, the Hiltons and the Marriotts and the Wyndhams, even though they're corporate owned, a lot of them make their decision on an independent basis, right?
really okay.
Board level, yes. A lot of them go through corporate. A lot of them like, sure, we'll bring it in. Side note, I came from the frozen pizza world, and I've been in many, I'm not going to mention brands, but the Hilton and Marriott's and those. And I'm like, how'd you get my pizza in here? They went to Walmart and bought it.
Oh,
So, yeah. So that's a way to go. And I'm not saying
so
hotels is
don't be afraid to, if you see a big brand on the front marquee, not don't be afraid to go in there and try to talk to somebody, is what you're saying.
Local level, 100%. Look, people like to support people locally, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if it were my brand, I wouldn't go after the hotel industry as the first, because just remember, you're getting hotel people that are staying there that don't know your local beer, right? Unless they've
Mhm.
heard about it, right? I'm not saying that I would focus on the hotel. If I were in any folks listening shoes, my first thing is I build up a strong brand awareness and presence with in-store and social media. And then I would start going after some local retailers, right? And I know a lot of them are owned by the Kroger and Albertsons and Ahold banners and the Walmarts and Targets, but there's a lot of independent. There's 22,000 independent retailers out there, right? The Ocean's 22,000.
I think there's a lot if you really start looking in the crooks and crannies around. And something else you talked about that I want to come back to is like thinking about your target audience and thinking about where they shop and where you can maybe like if you're trying to build a product that appeals to a certain type of drinker at a certain age or a certain vibe or whatever, placing your product in an environment where that person, is because I'm going to go on a limb here and say that that retail environment, not retail in your definition of it, but that store environment kind of is an influencer of purchasing decision. What they carry on the shelf is a recommendation of, hey, this is a product we get behind or whatever. So, thinking that way, they're having influence on that audience. And if you want to try to get in front of that audience,
Yeah.
then maybe look for retail spots or shelves that fit that, right? So, am I going down the right direction here with target audience
You know
decisions
what?
in retail?
Yes, Chris, and I'm going to piggyback on this, which is really, I think, look, in life, it's I use a baseball analogy, right? Everyone says Babe Ruth or some of these big sluggers had they struck out all the time, but you know what? They were going to the plate, right? So any brand out there, any brewer out there that wants to expand their distribution, expand sales and revenue, you got to get to the plate, right? And do some things. Most of the stuff you're going to do might fail, big effing deal, right? But you got to hit singles, doubles, triples, and home runs. My opinion is the following. I think, as I said, build your audience, get your brand awareness, get it on social media. Another big, massive opportunity is if you want to can your IPA, is there are thousands and thousands of restaurants in anyone's neighborhood, right? A pizzeria, pop-up shops, anywhere that sells alcohol, right? Go give them some product to see if it moves.
Hmm.
Work with them, right? Like if you've got your own brand and there's a pizzeria and there's over 80,000 pizzerias in this country, half are owned by the big boys, Domino's, Pizza Hut, Papa John's, the other half are independent. And I know where you live and you've got some hell of great pizzerias in your neck of the woods. I do too. Walk into your Blue Pan, they're here in Denver. Walk into them, and people do this all the time. And they got refrigerators. That's one way to go about it and say, hey, how do we work with you guys? We would love to work with you and get your product and whatever we can do. Here's free 12 cans or whatever to try, or go and get small coolers, refrigerators, countertops, have them wrap with your logo on it, and say to a pizzeria, can I put this in here and stock it and you sell it? I'm going to give you the refrigerator,
Yeah,
but
you
you
don't even need to make space. I'll make the space for you. This is like, if you
can
think
make
about it, this
small.
is Rockstar, this is Red Bull. This is what they
That's
do,
how they
right?
started, man. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how those guys do it. I mean, I know that world very, very well. And I know there's a couple companies that wrap refrigerators and freezers, obviously a refrigerator for this conversation.
Yeah.
And you can get a refrigerator that can hold 36, 48, 60 cans, right? We can have that conversation, whoever wants to reach out to me about that. But that's the way to go about it. So this is once again starting in your pond, right? Your stream, your lake, your
Well,
local river.
let me ask you this question, kind of down this road is, let's say you have a distributor. I'm going to pose two different questions. First question is, let's say you have a distributor because of it's required by law. You have to have one. You can't self-distribute as
Yeah.
the brand. or you've just chosen to have a distributor and you're like, yeah, I'm vibing with this. I want to get involved with the lakes, rivers, and ponds. Is that something you can go to your distributor and be like, hey, I want you to focus on these areas, go do this? Or do you see there being potential friction or hard with some of these kind of bigger distributors that, they're making the decisions on where to place product, right?
Great question.
Yeah.
And I'm going to answer this very easily. I came from the distribution world, not the alc world. I came from the food and beverage. I work for a company called PFG. They're a large broadline distributor. The true definition of a distributor is to distribute product, not sell. However, if any of these folks on this podcast have a distributor or they need to get into a distributor, you work with your local alcohol distributor and you partner with them saying, hey, here's my product, where's a good fit, I'm going to go out and sell it, and then I'm going to be able to pull it from Chris's distribution network or whatever. You find champions in the distributor that will push the product, right? Maybe you do incentives. There's something called spiffs that you, and I don't remember the terminal with the acronym, what it means. I'm drawing a blank. But a spiff is like an incentive, a gift card. So you work with your local beer distributor. You have meetings with them in their distribution warehouse, and obviously you get this all okayed by
In
the
some cases, the spiffs are allowed. In some cases, very not so with
right.
alcohol, I think. Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know the alcohol world, but I'm just saying you work with your sales reps in the distributor that will be able to go out and sell the most cases or give you leads or whatever. For this conversation, I still believe that everyone on this call that has one or two locations should be focused, like I said, 20, 30, 40-mile radius of their own
Right.
location, and then you can ask a restaurant, hey, can you carry my product? Yeah, we go through ABC distributor or whatever. Can you give me their contact?
Yeah, that was
That's
going to be my next question is let's say you run into that gate where it's, yeah, we have a distributor we work with, is that the answer is just get in front of the distributor at that point? Now you have a different gatekeeper you got to try to get in front of and make the call, right?
well, it's called the term in the industry is called forced distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you've got Chris's Pizzeria in Des Moines, Iowa, and you were like, I really want Mike's IPA, and I'm selling you my IPA, okay? And you're like, I have to have this product in here. And then I say, hey, Chris, who's your distributor? And you say, we go with XYZ. Give me their contact. Hey, XYZ, Mr. XYZ distributor, Chris wants 3 cases a week of it from you guys. Let's get the paperwork set up. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of that simple, but I don't know the alcohol world, so I don't want to lead someone astray, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean, you make me think about something down this road too of like, can you drive demand for the distributor or whoever, or even the location to want to stock your product, which is like the dream, right? If somebody calls you and it's like, I want to put your product on my shelves, that's like the best call ever to get, right? So you didn't have
100%.
to push it or whatever. And the question always is like, well, how do we influence that decision? Can we do some of that with marketing? Can we do some of that with sales? And I'll ask you a specific question about this because it's come up. I don't know, it's come up a few times over the last 6, 8 months in conversations I've had is like a product wants to get on a shelf somewhere with a distributor, a retail location, whatever. And that distributor, wherever, is saying, well, we're going to look at your social media. We're going to look at your branding. We're going to see if this is popular. Are you seeing that is like commonplace with what you do? Is like our brands are the shelf holders, the stores, the restaurants, the places really judging by social media following and engagement and stuff, or how advanced is that, or what are you kind of seeing in that world?
That's a great question. I am a firm believer, and I do see this with category buyers, whether it's food, beverage, alcohol, non-alcohol. Here's what they do. They go to your website, they look at it. Okay, easy to navigate, looks cool. They click on, well, in the food and non-alcohol beverage world, they go on Amazon
Hmm.
and they look and see, are you on Amazon? How are your reviews? right? Are you sold out? What's going on? They read the reviews and then they go to your social media. Most likely Instagram or TikTok. I would say Instagram is probably the best platform because of the pictures and the reels, and it's a little more simpler. Everyone says TikTok is a younger crowd. I like Instagram. Yes, they look at that. Why do they do that, Chris? I'll tell you why. Because just because they're sold on the product, they have to have the marketing to be able.
Right.
Here's the expression: sales gets product on the shelf, marketing takes it off. So if you have Chris's IPA sitting at an HEB, right, in Texas, and you're like, hey, and the buyer's like, man, this is a great tasting product, but you have no social media, you have no brand awareness, no brand loyalty, you will have zero velocity, meaning no one's going to buy your product, right? The turns are going to be so slow. Guess what's going to happen? You're out.
Yeah.
So just remember, anyone on this call, your product is renting space. I don't care if it's a clothing brand, a food, a beverage, you are renting that space either in the refrigerated section or on the shelf stable where it's not refrigerated. They got to go take it and put it in their cooler. You are renting space. That's why I said earlier, brand awareness, brand loyalty, brand following, emotions, getting the social media out there, getting people to wear your product, standing out from anyone else is crucial. I'll end with this comment by Steve Martin, who I love. Everyone loves Steve Martin, right? He has a quote, and one of the lines is, "Be so good they can't ignore you. Be so good they can't ignore you." You said it. It's a
Yeah.
different conversation for a buyer to come to you and said, "Hey, I tried your product. I saw your product. My cousin saw your product. I love it and I want it in my store," versus you going to them like thousands of others do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to ask you that, man. I think that's an excellent comment. And, I'm always curious about it because it's like, well, how do we influence this? What really goes into it? Why are these things such an important factor? And you've answered it there. It's because they want to make sure that product is sellable and is going to move, and it's marketing that will help it move. So,
Yeah.
excellent comment there. Do you have a couple more minutes? Are we, you okay?
Chris, I
Chat?
always have, listen, I love talking. I love talking about things that I know. I don't know a lot about the beer world. If anyone's on this call ever wants to invite me to their brewery, I'd be happy to come there and sample their product. I find the beer world, it's an art, but a science, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much involved in it, and I am fascinated with it. I do know some companies out there that go to beer locations, craft breweries, and take their, I'm going to use a word, their what do you call it? Their grinds and the barley and
Oh,
hop,
yeah. Like the spent grains.
the spent grain. They take
Yeah.
those and they use those in as an ingredient in breads, in bars,
Dog
in
biscuits. There's like a dog biscuit
biscuits,
company that'll make them. It's brilliant.
things
Yeah.
like that. So I have to do one sort of a plug for a brand I'm working for, and this and I told this guy I'm going to say something about his brand. He's got a food brand. He's got a gourmet grilled cheese, fully prepared grilled cheese, sourdough grilled cheese. That when I don't look, I don't have time to waste on working with brands that I think are crap. It's called the Friendly Bread. He's
Okay.
based in Baltimore. Anyone reaches out to me, and we've talked about this because the owner's name is Lane. I am a full believer that his product should sit in every single small brewery, microbrewery, tap house, unless they make their own sandwiches. This is the best of the best. And he's got a killer product. He manufactures it himself. He's got a team that manufactures it, and he's got everything ready to go for distributors. We don't know the brewer world very well. I don't know it, and I've reached out to the Brewers Association, and I'm trying to
Well,
learn.
you're not
Well,
far off, right? Just how you said, these kind of like lakes, rivers, and ponds exist with restaurants and whatever. The brewery space, there's like, levels of brewery where maybe you've got a full kitchen, but a lot of breweries don't. And a lot of breweries are struggling right now because they didn't have some kind of food option before. And now that it's more competitive, they need food. So what are they doing? They're doing pretzels, they're doing pizza, and they're trying to have more than that because that's like everybody's got that. And not everybody's going to eat a pretzel or a pizza, but a really cool gourmet ass grilled cheese. That sounds sick. but it's down that road. So it's kind of a flip of the situation here. Is like there's an opportunity for some of these food service guys to get involved with breweries and have a more elevated kind of foods packaged option than just, I got a frozen burrito or something like
Well, yeah, let me say this, and because this is my wheelhouse as far as food goes. Um, Labor costs are outrageously expensive, and
that.
I'm
Oh yeah.
going to bet on whoever's listening at home or in their car or jogging or in their restaurant. Hopefully, they're shaking their head yes, because food costs are outrageous, labor costs are outrageous. Labor sucks for the most part. I'm assuming most people have a hard time getting quote unquote good help in their stores, right? Ingredients,
Inconsistent at at least.
inconsistent,
Yeah.
safety, sanitation, right? Consistency, right? Food costs are outrageous. So please have anyone reach out to me. I do have pretzel manufacturers that I think are outrageously amazing. I'm not going to mention them now, but I will. I have pizza manufacturers. I have, whether it's gluten or gluten free. I just plugged a friendly bread because I do think that these grilled cheese, he's got four flavors, are perfect for having a good quality beer. And you
Yeah.
put it in your turbo chef or some little oven, right? You don't need a vent to have that experience. Remember, once again, the holistic approach is somebody walks into your location, they want good temperature. It's not too hot, not too cold. They want good vibes. They want it to be crowded or not crowded with the people they want to hang out with. They want solid beer, IPA that's priced right, that they love. They want good food. They want, all that encompasses the experience, right? The Disneyland experience, or when
Mhm.
someone walks into Walmart, they're greeted. It's all about the experience.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these beer operators do one thing very well, and they probably make a hell of a beer. But do they do all this holistically well? I don't know. And it's extremely competitive. And I can go downtown Denver where I live. I don't live in downtown, but I can drive 20 minutes and you'll find all these microbreweries and tap houses
Yeah.
everywhere, right? So it's important.
You got to have stuff that'll keep somebody in the tap room longer.
And
And one of
coming
those
back.
is food. Yeah. And coming back. Right. And we'll bring somebody that maybe isn't, super into beer, but oh, I'm kind of hungry. I'll go with you guys. If you don't have something that can satisfy that person, then all right, you're now checked off the list of places that we want to go to tonight or this afternoon or this Saturday or whatever.
Well, and I'm going to piggyback on that. I tell everybody this: bad news travels very, very fast, especially internet, right? The Yelp, Google reviews, you can put it on Instagram, you can put it on Reddit. I mean, bad news travels really fast, okay? So if someone has a bad experience in your store, they're
Mhm.
going to share it. A good experience is not as readily accessible, right? Some do, some don't. But if you can incentivize your customers with, hey, if you had a bad experience, please tell me. Don't tell the world. Let me fix it. If
Yeah.
you have a good experience, please tell the world and tell me, right? Here's how to tell the world. Go on social media, go on Yelp, go on this, go on that. I'm a small business owner and I'm competing with everybody else. And I appreciate and respect and am honored that you, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, is coming into my door. And I want you to have the best experience and to tell your friends and family and to come back.
Excellent advice. I got one more question for you because I'm just curious about this. You have experience in the snack world. Yeah, you do a bunch of stuff here, obviously. I'm curious, like, what that world looks like, from like a maybe an industry trend perspective. I'll give you some framing is, in the craft beer world, Gen Z is a hot topic. Is Gen Z going to start drinking eventually? They don't drink as much, so the younger audience is something that like, how do we build products for that? People are thinking about cannabis infusion and, lower ABV kind of stuff and so on and so forth. That isn't necessarily my question. My real question is like, what does the snack world look like? Are you guys experiencing similar things? Do you have your eyes on Gen Z? What does that look like? What do the snacks of the future look like for folks? And curious what you think about that.
Well, I'm going to lump snacks and actually food in general, whether it's an entree, a handheld item. Here's the takeaway for this audience. Um, Easy to heat up or put out, and I'll go into detail in just a minute. Um, Handheld is very popular, right? A
Hmm.
good quality burrito or a good quality stromboli or calzone or grilled cheese or something that is handheld that doesn't require a lot of labor and plates and equipment for these owners. Those are really important. What I am seeing in the food and snack world are the following. People are looking, and I hate this term. I'm going to say it though, because it's what people recognize as better for you. It's such a bullshit word. What the F
coming
does
coming from the nutritionist here.
but better for you doesn't mean anything. You could say cleaner ingredients,
Uh,
right? You could say more higher fiber, just better source products, but better for you. What the hell does that really mean,
we can't
right?
say healthy anymore, right? I think Cliff
I mean,
was got some for that.
healthy is overused. Better for like, oh, this is worse for you. Like, nah, cleaner. Anyway, it's all about unique flavors, whether it's a Mediterranean, a
Mm,
Spanish flavor, Oriental from Asia flavor, spicy flavors. That's number one. Number two, we have seen trends where it's a common product like a gummy bear or a candy bar or a snack item that has taken out the sugars or the higher fat content or things like that. So anyone on this call, reach out to me. I will give you leads because this is what I'm all about. I'm all about the David versus Goliath out there. And at retail, the Ocean is owned by private label and it's owned by the Goliaths. And I'm going to mention some of the Goliaths. Not a bad or good thing. They just own the retail space. The Mondelez, Kraft, Unilever, Kellogg's, Nestle, Pepsi's of the world, ConAgra, they own retail. So to sit on the shelf for a small brand is really impossible and very expensive.
yeah.
There are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of small brands out there that are looking for distribution points like a bar, right? It could be a unique nut flavor, right? There's a bunch of different nuts out there. And I just came from Sweet and Snacks, as we talked about in Indianapolis, and there were probably over 50 nut companies out there.
Really?
Flavored nuts, wasabi and kimchi and chili lime and barbecue, beef jerky as well, and meat sticks, but nuts. So to offer unique things to the customers is brilliant marketing
Mm.
because they might not all like it, but everyone can have a peanut if they can have, peanut allergies, whatever. But to offer something unique and different sets that particular location up from the others that are out there.
I love that. And it's a nice way to do it. Yeah, you can have some snack foods and everybody's got peanuts, but like we've got cool wasabi peanuts from this really cool company that's, making the world better
Local.
in some way, right? Local. Yeah, exactly. That's good stuff. I'm so happy we had a chance to talk, Mike. This has
I
been great.
appreciate it.
For those, we mentioned it multiple times to reach out to you if they have
Sure.
questions or want to talk. How would they do that? Where are you at?
Easy, couple easy places. FSoctopus.com, and FS stands for food service octopus, but FSoctopus.com. Make sure you spell octopus right. I live and breathe on LinkedIn. My name, Mike Levinson, Mikelevinson. I'm on there. Those are the two places you can reach out to me directly, Mike at FSoctopus.com. I pride myself on a few things. And number one is I reply to everybody. Okay. I don't give a shit if they're selling me insurance or franchises for a chicken wing place. I will reply. It could be no thank you, not interested, but I will reply. So anyone that reaches out to me, and I am happy to have conversations. And if I can assist, I don't like that word help, but if I can help assist in any way with anyone listening on the food, on the beverage, on the marketing, on the sales, on the distribution side, um, reach out to me, hit me up. I'm here.
Well, I'd echo that. I think we'll definitely put all the contact information in the show notes. So if you're listening or watching or whatever, look underneath the video or the listening thing and look for those links. I think that if you're a brewery and you're looking for some creative, food stuff to put in your brewery tap room, reach out to Mike. I also think that if hey, you're trying to get creative with how you are distributing your product, which is where this conversation started, and I'm really happy that it went full like 180 on it because there's a whole other world of that stuff where you can be helpful. But on the distribution side, I think you'd be an excellent resource too. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here. This has been educational for me, and I know people got some value from it.
I appreciate pleasure, humbled to be on here. Look forward to continuing the conversation with you down the road, and look forward to any of your viewing audience or listening audience to reach out to me. I'm excited to chat.
Right on, dude. Catch you next time.
Cool. Thanks, buddy. Bye.